In 1990, Judas Priest released possibly the best album of their career. It was both a comeback and the end of the band. It was a turning point for the band as they wouldn't bounce back until about 15 years later. It was the first album for the drummer, the last one for the band's frontman. I will be talking about all of that as well as showing you the vinyl album I purchased a few years ago, which is actually the second time I bought this album, and I'll explain why in a minute. Today we're talking about Painkiller, the 12th studio album by Judas Priest, released on September 17th, 1990. This is the last album with Rob Halford until his return 15 years later. It's the first album with Scott Travis on drums after longtime drummer Dave Holland left the band. It's also a much heavier album than many of their previous ones, especially the few that were released before this, as they were leaning more towards glam metal. This one also has Don Airey of Deep Purple and many other bands, and he plays keyboards on one specific song, which I'll talk about later. Not only that, Don Airey even said in an interview that he doubled most of the album's bass parts on a Mini Moog synthesizer. It's also the first Judas Priest album that I had ever bought, and I remember that when I was getting into metal, I never liked Judas Priest that much, but it wasn't after that I saw the music video for Painkiller, and I decided to pick up a cassette version, which I don't have anymore. It's not this one. I bought this one later. And this one is the first vinyl record I bought a few years ago when I started to collect vinyl records again. This has always been one of my favorite albums, and that's why I decided to pick this one up again on vinyl. One of those albums that's both a comeback and a final album before they were reborn in 2005 when Rob Halford returned to the band for Angel of Retribution. This is the point in the video where I will show the album, but when you watch my videos, you know I like to film this part separately so that I don't have to take out everything on camera and hold it up and it gets awkward and all that. So, okay, now it's time to look at the vinyl. So this is one of the newer versions where it shows the album cover, which I've always loved. Let me take a look at the back now. This has some more artwork. The wording is kind of hard to see because it's red on blue, so I actually don't like that aspect of it. But I really like this image in the middle. Here are the song titles where it has the 5 songs on side A and the 5 songs on side B. And here is just the Sony Music logo, and just down there's the copyright, although it's kind of hard to see. Here is the inner sleeve, which looks exactly like the album cover. And here is the back of the inner sleeve, and this shows the song lyrics. So let me get a little closer in this one. So for example, here is lyrics to the first song, Painkiller, going into Hell Patrol, and then it goes into all of the other songs. So it's really cool that you get the lyrics. You don't always get that on vinyl records. Here's the vinyl, and the sticker in the middle can get a little confusing because the other side, it's kind of hard to see. I'll show you in a second, but this really confuses me because I can't tell which one is which side because they have the two sides. Well, it says side A, the other side, so you have to read that. So this is actually side B, which says this side. I actually don't like how they do that on this vinyl, but it always confuses me, but that's how it is. So let's take a look at the other side. And here's the other side, which is an image of the album cover. And it's cool and all. I mean, it's cool aesthetic when you put it on your turntable, but I like to read the album titles when it spins around. It's just something I used to do when I was a kid. That's just me. But anyway, that's the vinyl, and let's go back to the video. I'm going to talk about the songs on the album. There are 10 tracks. The album is 45 minutes long. Opening track is the title track, Painkiller. It's a very iconic song. It begins with that amazing drum intro, played by new member Scott Travis. The album has some really iconic song intros, which you will see when I get to track number 3. There'll be another cool one. The song then goes into an incredible riff, which is faster and heavier than almost anything they've ever played before. Rob Halford uses higher range vocals throughout the entire song, but they don't sound screechy at any point in the song. There's an extended guitar solo in the middle of the song. After that, the song goes back to the main guitar riff and melody and ends with another shorter guitar solo. Overall, an amazing song, one of the best album openers of any album in the history of heavy metal. This is followed by Hell Patrol. The song brings back a little of that classic Judas Priest sound that they had in the early 80s. Still a very heavy and aggressive song. Rob Halford uses both lower range and higher range vocals, and the song has a very big and epic feel. There's also a lot of guitar solos in the middle, and overall it maintains the pace of the album without sacrificing any of the heaviness. The third track is All Guns Blazing. This one has a really cool vocal intro by Rob Halford, and the song just takes off and maintains the same pace as the first two songs. It's fast, it's heavy, it's aggressive. There are tons of guitar riffs. Most of this album has a very fast pace, but you're going to notice later on in track number 5 that they're going to be playing some slower and heavier guitar riffs, so I'll get to that in a minute. But Glenn Tipton also does lots of those dive bomb solos, and there's a pretty cool extended guitar solo in the middle of the song. And they play with the pacing a little bit as they slow it down a little bit during the bridge, but overall, another great song. Leather Rebel starts with a very fast and aggressive guitar riff. It just maintains that fast pace throughout. There are lots of awesome twin guitar leads. You could also hear how they layered Rob Halford's vocals. Then there is Metal Meltdown. It's track number 5. It begins with an instrumental section that's just a guitar solo, goes into some fast and heavy guitar riffs. Scott Travitt has some awesome double bass drumming, and Rob Halford uses both higher and lower range vocals. The song has lots of energy. It maintains a fast pace throughout. There's also a blazing guitar solo in the second half of the song. Then at the end, they play some of these slower Black Sabbath style guitar riffs before picking up the pace again. So as you can see, they do have a tendency to slow it down at times on this album. Then there's the track Nightcrawler. Here they start to sound like classic Judas Priest a little more, but they still keep that overall tone of the other songs of the album. The pace might be a little slower, but it still has lots of guitar riffs and solos. The solo is more melodic, and the drumming is just as good as anything else on the album. Then about halfway through the song, there's a very dark and heavy interlude with clean arpeggios, which is not the only song where they change up the atmosphere of the song. There will be another one that uses some haunting keyboards coming up, which is actually one of my favorite songs from the album. I'll get to that in a second, but Rob Halford also sings in a lower range, and they continue with the main melody. It's a really great song. Then there is Between the Hammer and the Anvil. This one had more of that classic Judas Priest sound. It brought back some of their early 80s sound. The song is still very dark and heavy. It has that twin guitar attack of Glenn Tipton and KK Downing. The song also has some slower sections where they add in sound effects in. It sounds like an actual hammer hitting an anvil, or I don't know how exactly they made that sound, but that's what it sounds like. And it kind of like gives it an industrial sound, which is pretty cool. Then there is maybe one of my favorite songs, A Touch of Evil. One of the slower tracks, not necessarily a ballad, but more of a slower paced metal song. Still has that very dark and aggressive sound. It has some of Rob's best vocals on the album, and the song is also very melodic. It has a very unique sound. It kind of sounds like some of the heavy metal of the 1970s. I even thought of the band Rainbow and some of the guitar playing of Richie Blackmore at one part in this song. There's a cool melodic interlude with a guitar solo, and this one has the keyboards of Don Airey, and that really makes a big difference in the song. It just adds this other element to it. There's also that awesome high note that Rob sings right before about almost 5 minutes into the song. It's the second single and probably should have charted higher. I know it was on the rock charts or something like that. The next song is an instrumental called Battle Hymn. It's just under 1 minute. It's very epic, almost power metal sounding. It has some dark and evil sounding guitars, and it goes into the last track, One Shot at Glory. It's another track. It sounds like classic Judas Priest. I would even say the song was reminiscent of the sound of the late 70s, but with a little bit of that modern sound. Rob has some awesome high-range vocals in this track. I also noticed they're doing some cool galloping guitar rhythms on the track, which is always good to hear in heavy metal. This song also has some of the best solos, which work very well in terms of keeping the melody of the song. Let me know in the comments, what do you think of this album? Are you a fan of this band and this album? In the meantime, please give this video a like. It helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Please subscribe if you have not already. I do videos related to physical media on this channel. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.